in general, let's start with you, Chris. What are some of the roadblocks you hit in the sales process? Are there certain questions that may trip you up as an integrator? And some of the pitfalls, basically, that you should try and avoid or that you have to handle?
So sometimes a client isn't going to have the budget available at that time for the project, or they're fine with their current SCADA and they don't want to transition the entire system. And so it's finding that point of entry with the client. And this is a really important. You have to listen to them and find out where their pain points are and see where you could get it in, even if it's the smallest application of it. So we've had success with, say, if somebody's trying to use a different alarm dialer, like Win 911, you can get ignition in there for the alarm dialing for a lesser cost. Or if they're trying to do a local OIT, say on a panel view or something else, you can get an industrial computer and ignition running, doing the exact same thing and better for cheaper. If they like their SCADA system and they're going to stick with it no matter what, guess what? You can add an MES layer on top of it in ignition, and it's going to work perfectly. And so it's finding what they need, what they're going to latch on to, and then I guarantee once you have it in there, it will grow and grow and grow because they will like the features and they're going to like the uses of it, and you'll get more and more projects off of it.
That's totally true. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. Mark, how about any comments on roadblocks in the sales process, how you handle them?
Well, I would say, to Chris, I would say ditto. I think the key to selling it is to start with a project that is scalable for success. And again, don't be afraid to start small. Start small, succeed, and then, as Chris said, it just grows and grows and grows. I'll tell you right now, anywhere where we put an ignition in with a small project, we go back time after time and add more projects to that. The other thing, as far as a challenge on it, quite often they get confused by the idea of a server. Do I need a server for this? And Travis mentioned that it can run on a laptop, it can run on a desktop, whatever. And that's one of the first things we diffuse, is that it's a server, but it can run on, it's a very small footprint, and it can run on anything. And so that helps quite a bit in that challenge.
Mark, thanks. I'm gonna jump into one of the questions here, and maybe if either Travis or Vannessa has any comments on it, but I'm gonna ask you guys first as integrators, because there is the challenge of getting your foot in the door. And Jason has a question here. Please share some how-tos on just getting your foot in the door. So with that thought in mind, because that certainly fits in the category of roadblocks or pitfalls in the sales process, like getting it started. So Chris, do you have a foot in the door thing? And I'll ask for other comments from others here too.
Foot in the door is trying to understand the business model. And so you can guess a lot from knowing what industry they're in, what their product is, and common, needs that are going to be symptoms of those industries, and then specifically target them with either, an email or direct marketing, or maybe even just a phone call or LinkedIn to talk about that one specific need that you want to try to solve for them.
Thanks, Chris. I'd also just comment that one of the things that we certainly find is, as integrators, you have relationships with a lot of your customers. You often put in whatever system they're working on, so there's some confidence they're going to have in you, some trust. Please use that to open the door to have a discussion just about their, as Chris said, about their business model, what they're trying to accomplish. What if that Mark mentioned. So, Mark, any comments on foot in the door from your side?
Again, pretty much the same as Chris. I think it's a pretty standard business challenge is how do you get your foot in the door. And quite often when we're working in an industry, we look at allied industries, with the project we might be working on, and just reach out and start talking to people within the organization about what we're doing. Quite often it's also a referral business. We do a lot of referral business from this.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Vannessa, do you have anything you want to say in terms of, you've been very successful at selling, and even though you're not an integrator, you're working with so many. Any foot in the door advice you could give?
Typically, I agree. I would have to agree with what both Chris and Mark said. Ignition, it's not about trying to, shove ignition in front of somebody who doesn't understand what it is and feels like they don't have a need for it. You really have to figure out what that company does and what's important to that person. So I've been on both sides of the fence. Like I've been a salesperson, I've been a manufacturing engineer. As a manufacturing engineer, if a salesperson approached me, I would listen if they had something to offer that would allow me to check off a box on one of my project lists. So it's really important to understand who you're talking to, what their role is, and possibly what projects they're working on at that point. Like I had one project I needed to fix our ECO system, our engineering change order system. So if a company approached me and said that key term to me, my ears would perk up and listen. So it's all about doing some research and understanding who you're talking to and what projects they might have on their plate, or really what their role is in the company.